Thank you, and once again, good morning, everyone. Well, it's not exactly morning anymore, but hello again. Allow me to begin by saying that when I chose this topic, I'm not an expert in Ukraine, but we just thought that it would be nice to have the current events covered at this conference. And in that time, we didn't have any contributions from Ukraine or Russia. But eventually, Professor Smorzewska, who will be speaking after me, sent in her abstract. So you can perceive my presentation as a warm-up before listening to someone who actually knows what they are talking about. So yes, Kolovrat and Kalashnikov, the role of paganism in the war in Ukraine. Let's begin briefly by reflecting the religious situation in Ukraine, which is, just like Russia, predominantly Orthodox, followed by non-affiliated, which only consist 11% of Ukrainians, then Greek Catholics, 9.4%, and so on, while modern pagans comprised in 2018 only 0.1% of the population, which is, well, given that Ukraine is quite large, it's about 45,000 people. And these 45,000 people were divided into 138 registered organizations, pagan organizations, most of them being of native faith, that is, Slavic Reconstructionism. So that was very briefly the role, the situation regarding religion, and let's move on the role of religion in the war. So I don't want to suggest that the war in Ukraine is any sort of religious war, but as we'll see, religion does play an important role in the events. So before taking a deeper look at paganism itself, let's take a look on, let's say, other religious factors in the conflict. This one. Yeah, one of the key players in Russian hybrid war and also in the physical war, as I will show, is the Russian Orthodox Church. Not only that is the Moscow Patriarch Kirill one of the closest allies and friends of and means of propagandists and main propagandist of Vladimir Putin, but the Orthodox Church, the Russian Orthodox Church, has also played a rather direct role in the conflict. For example, in April 2014, in Slavyansk, in eastern Ukraine, a large group of unknown men reportedly entered the building of a cultural center run by the Ukrainian branch of Russian Orthodox Church in the evening, and in the morning, and they were carrying large bags and wooden boxes, and in the morning a group of heavily armed masked men left the building and they stormed the local police station and took over it. And other such reports of Orthodox priests helping the separatist forces or the Russian forces, consecrating their weapons and letting them use church properties for their war efforts. These reports were coming from all over the region. There was also an entire paramilitary group called Russian Orthodox Army. That's part of the group. You can see their flag here. And in an interview for the BBC, one of its fighters called the city of Donetsk a New Jerusalem, and the war being a holy war of the Russian people for its own future, for its own ideals, for its children and its great country that 25 years ago was divided into pieces. Today, the Russian Orthodox Army is part of Oplot Brigade. It's not a separate battalion today. There were also Muslim battalions, namely of Chechens, fighting on both sides, and of Crimean Tatars fighting against Russia, etc. But our main focus is on modern pagans. So are pagans engaged in this war in any way? Well, I guess we wouldn't be here if they weren't. So let's start on the Ukrainian side. I guess that by now you all probably heard about Azov, a battalion glorified mostly for defending the city of Mariupol, but by the Russian propaganda also being often given as an example of why Ukraine needs to be denazified, etc. I don't want to romanticize Azov and idealize them, because in the beginning of the battalion in 2014, well, the first combatants of Azov were actually, a lot of them were right-wing extremists, football hooligans and skinheads, etc. It isn't really difficult to link Azov's symbolism with Nazism. Its emblem used between 2014 and 2015. They don't use it now. They used the previous one showed on the previous slide. Is actually filled with symbols that can be associated with Nazi ideology. The wolf's angle, the wolf's hook in the front, which originally was a medieval hunting tool, wolf hunting tool, and a heraldic symbol, but also was adopted as a symbol by the German Nazi Party. And the black sun in the back is even more straightforward, because it's actually not a historical symbol, not a pre-Christian pagan symbol. It was designed for Heinrich Himmler and his Wewelsburg castle. It's on the floor of the Wewelsburg castle, and nowadays it's used by neo-Nazi groups and Nazi occultist groups. Like I said, this emblem was abandoned by Azov as early as 2015, with the current emblem being a simple wolf's angle shown here, which is, sort of slightly less problematic. And as the importance of Azov grew over time, because they were involved in the early phases of the conflict, and they were important, and its importance grew, and the radicals were actually, the radical members were actually systematically pushed off, had been pushed off from Azov. So now the story about Azov being a dangerous neo-Nazi militia is mainly fed by Russian propaganda. Now, I think we'll have to do the same as we did with... No. Let's stop here. I said, let's stop here. That was a rather interesting video from Azov's official channel and from its official communication. It was a ritual It was a celebration of the victory of Sviatoslav I Igorevich over Khazars in 969, and this was a celebration of these events in Urzów in 2017. And in the excerpt, you could have seen the members of Azov Battalion performing a blood offering. They dropped their blood to the pit where the statue of Perun was erected afterwards. And then it follows by some sporting event in honor of Perun and some sort of Olympic games for Perun. Beside those things I was speaking in the beginning regarding Azov, there have also been quite a lot of followers of native faith within its ranks. Obviously, the categories a bit overlap because many of them are also football hooligans and etc. But there were and are actually a lot of followers of native faith, and as you could see in the video, it plays a very important role in Azov's both in-group dynamics and building of cohesion, as well as in its PR. And propaganda. During this event, one of the commanders said that today, on the victory day of Sviatoslav, we would like to establish another tradition in our garrison, putting here the statue of Perun, the patron of all Slavs, and in particular the soldiers. Perun, as the firstborn, as a real defender of his kind, will defend our garrison. Well, of course, it is hard to say to what extent it is a role play or authentic, but we can find entire temples, or at least idols of Perun and other Slavic deities on virtually all Azov's bases. And they are reportedly often used either for rituals, but also for consecrating weapons before going into battle, etc. But there is also a rather unintended role modern paganism plays. Because when we take a deeper look into Russian or Russia-funded media, which is a horrific experience, I did it for you, we will find that the rhetoric of the Kremlin propaganda about neo-Nazis in Ukraine is to a great extent founded on an effort to link neo-paganism with neo-Nazism, and recently also with Satanism. For example, RIA Novosti, which is one of the main news agencies in Russia, reported just a few weeks ago, actually, that that on the base of Azov militants in Mariupol, objects of a satanic and pagan cult were found, stressing out that the temple was located just a few meters from a local school. And that numerous satanic symbols were found there. You can see them, hear the satanic symbols like memes and, well, of course, these stickers. That's that. Just another few weeks before that, another horrific discovery was made. At the headquarters of the Ukrainian military, signs of black magic were found. Yes, I see you, thank you. And they even found a sigil on the wall and had an expert explaining how evil, dark, and neo-Nazi this sigil is, actually. So that's Russian media. So, and another report says that Azov built a temple for Perun near Mariupol with state funds, and a kidnapped local resident was sacrificed to the idol, but there was no investigation. So, yes. Well, the propagandist rhetoric about paganism and neo-Nazism is a bit ironic, I would say, because I missed a slide here. I was going to show you a picture of a member of separatist Donetsk Republic militia being awarded for a heroic fight against Ukrainian Nazis, wearing a Totenkopf and a Volknut, which was very ironic, and it disappeared from the news site a few hours after it appeared, because it was very ironic. Yes. On the side of the pro-Russian separatists, there, for example, was a group called Svarok or Svarozhic Battalion, sometimes called the Battalion of Slavic Unification and Revival, with Svarok being Slavic god, usually considered to be the god of heavenly fire, the heavens, etc. Today it forms a part of the Oplot Brigade, and its fate is not entirely certain, but we know that the leader of this battalion was Oleg Orchikov. You can see him here, also known as Vargan, a warlord that was eventually imprisoned by the Donetsk Republic, on whose side he was fighting actually, but he was imprisoned by the government in November 2014 and sentenced to life imprisonment in 2017. However, his comrades and fellow fighters in Svarok's battalion do not believe that Orchikov's accusations of numerous crimes, ranging from theft to murder, are true. In their view, he and his battalion have simply become too powerful and therefore inconvenient. At the height of its fame, Svarok battalion actually had 1,200 fighters, all of them being followers of native faith. And in Petrovsky district of Donetsk today even stands a shrine with wooden statues of the goddess Lada, wrought in Svarok, garnished with a circle of stones and gathered from all over Russia, etc. And some members of the group even gave some interviews for the media. Really, just 1 minute, including the problems I had. Okay, never mind. Yeah. Okay. And these interviews are actually a great source for a deeper insight into the motivations of these native faith fighters. Even Orchikov himself gave an interview in which he claimed that he never wanted war, but had for a long time dreamt of the spiritual awakening of the Donbas region of East Ukraine once it was cleansed of non-Russian enemies. And he was looking forward to the creation of a Russian state stretching from Atlantic to the Pacific. He said, first we had perestroika, a process of reconstruction. Now we have a process of killing off, and then we will have a process of renewal. It is important to go through this killing off process first, because the cancerous cells have to die. This is the evolutionary road. He said. Another great example is the interview with Vitaly Brednev, former member also of Svarok, and in the time of the interview he was actually a member of parliament of the separatist Donetsk Republic, who together with his fellow believers believes that humanity is on an evolutionary path, which is the same as Orchikov was saying, evolutionary path led by the Slavic race. And the goal of this journey is to gain knowledge, enlightenment, through a series of rebirths until humanity evolves into the God-wrought, the primordial, original, absolute deity himself. They deflect the suggestion that they are fighting other Slavs by saying that all those who fight against them are foreign mercenaries, non-humans. And when they defeat these evolutionary less evolved non-humans, they say they will be able to concentrate more on spiritual revival, rebuild their industry, start farming organically, and build a new Eden. So, what is the role of religion and of paganism in the war in Ukraine? It appears that even though these boundaries are very blurry and the categories overlapping, there are two main roles of religion in Ukraine, in Ukrainian war. The forces involved either use religion as a mean of war, which is a case of Russian Orthodox Church and of Russia, of Kremlin, like I showed above, and or they do have actual religious agenda and motivations, like in the case of Russian Orthodox Army and the Svarog battalion. And paganism, although minority religion, actually is leaving quite a deep trace in the war, partially given by the fact that it is used by the opposite propaganda. What was I going to say? Yes. Partially given by the fact that Russian propaganda tries to link neo-pagan faith of Azov and other groups' militants to neo-Nazism. And yes, it seems that from the available sources that the native faith serves as a powerful mean of justification and legitimization of the efforts of the fighters on both sides of the conflict. Thank you.